Paul outlines some very important principles about Christian giving in these chapters of 2 Corinthians, and he's not finished yet. This in itself underlines the importance of this subject, particularly important in our comparatively affluent Western society. We're going to learn a little more today about both the act of giving and the attitude with which we give from our reading in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 6 to 11. But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. Every man according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that ye, always having all sufficiently in all things, may abound to every good work. As it is written, he hath dispersed abroad, he hath given to the poor, his righteousness remaineth forever. Now he that ministereth seed to the sower both minister bread for your food, and multiply your seed sown, and increase the fruits of your righteousness, being enriched in everything to all bountifulness, which causeth through us thanksgiving to God. One of the things that I remember when I worked in Belfast city centre was the charity collectors. The vast majority of them were well behaved, but occasionally you would have encountered one who would rattle the collecting box in your face with a certain degree of menace and in the hope of encouraging you to contribute. They weren't interested in the means so long as they got your money. Christian giving ought not to be like that, and we've already talked a little about willingness in earlier videos. If there be first a willing mind, chapter 8 verse 12. In the previous verse, Paul has spoken of what we give as being your bounty in verse 5, but it can only be our bounty if we give bountifully. He which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. This is a natural law. On the one hand, the less that is put in, the less is produced. On the other hand, the more that is put in, the more is produced. The contrast is between holding back and giving liberally, and there is a choice involved. Paul encourages a purpose of heart to give liberally. Every man according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give. Verse 7. But there's another aspect to this. We should be willing, we should be purposeful, but we should also be cheerful as we give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver, also in verse 7. One should not give reluctantly, in a sense, sorry that we have to part with our money, nor should it be done simply because you were forced into it, even if by charity collector embarrassment. It should be with a willing cheerfulness of the character of God's giving in a way that he would delight in. Now, God is able to help us with this. God is able to make all grace abound towards you, verse 8. He will always supply the grace that we need. We will never be left in need. The fact was that they had been blessed with having their own needs met. They had sufficient for the necessities of life, and so they were in a position to rise to the occasion, to abound in this good work and more. Ye always, having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work. Also verse 8. In the quotation from Psalm 112, Paul includes the words, his righteousness remaineth forever, in verse 9. And that's to remind us that dispersal of material things for the needs of others is a demonstration of our righteousness. It is something that righteous people, and as Christians, ought to do. Now let me make a final point. When Paul quotes, he that ministereth seed to the sower, in verse 10, he reminds us that we have received everything that we have from God. Just as the sower received the seed from the farmer, it was not his own. If we're called upon to sow, we should remember that there is one who has given us the seed to do so. God has supplied us with the wherewithal for the purpose of us using it to meet the needs of others. If God meets more than our needs, we should use the extra to meet the needs of others. to minister bread for your food and multiply your seed sowing and increase the fruits of your righteousness, also in verse 10. Now, that is what we might call Christian value for money.